The Lord be with you. I thought I'd say a few words about the word righteousness and the word faith. Uh, there seems to be a great deal of confusion, and especially about righteousness. There's a huge argument about the word righteousness. Sometimes it's translated justification and justify and make righteous and declare righteous. There's a noun and there's a verb. And so anytime you see the word justify or righteousness, it's always the same root Greek word, which if you really want to know, I'll let you know. So here's kind of where I am in my understanding of the word righteousness, which I really love the word righteousness. It says one person said it about me. He says, Steve, you've always got to be right. And I go, yeah, I don't want to be wrong. Now, he meant don't be a dogmatic jerk, but nonetheless, I still don't want to be wrong. I want to be right. I don't want to be on the side of wrong. I want to be on the side of right. I want to be on the side of God. So here's my basic understanding of the word righteousness. Okay. So I gather that is primarily a legal term, though I don't think that's always how it's used. So as far as declaring somebody right or not guilty or innocent, I'll give three different analogies. So here's the first. Okay, for all of you baseball fans, batter hits the ball, hits it to the shortstop. The shortstop grabs the ball, throws it to first base. The first baseman catches the ball, holds on to the ball, and has his foot on the bag. Doesn't drop the ball. After that point, the batter, the runner, tags first base. Is he, according to the rules of baseball, okay, is he safe or out? Okay, all of you baseball fans, quick, write it down, before I give the correct answer. Is he safe or out? Answer, we don't know yet whether he is safe or out. I probably ruined things by saying according to the rules of baseball, because according to the rules of baseball, he would be out and should be out, but he's not out yet. Because if the umpire or the referee or whatever that guy at first base goes like this with his hands and slides his hands over each other, guess what? It doesn't matter what the rules say. He's out. Now, this only works prior to instant replay. But let's just forget instant replay for a while. He's safe. Doesn't matter that he should have been out. Doesn't matter how much you yell at the TV. Doesn't matter how much you want instant replay. The referee makes the call. Now, of course, the problem with this is he should have been out, okay? And the whole game has been messed up because of a bad call. And that's the problem that God faces, because he has to look at all of us and go, you're out of there, because technically we're out. Now, can God righteously say, oh, hey, you're all safe, you're all forgiven. Hey, I'm just going to ignore all your sin and your rebellion. You're actually guilty, but I'm going to call you not guilty because, hey, I'm God. Can God do that? Well, yeah, but then he would not be righteous. Okay, so here's how the legal thing works, okay? And you know the basic idea. So I'm guilty of murder, but the judge says not guilty. Well, guess what? I'm not guilty, but that judge would be unrighteous, because according to the law, according to righteousness under the law, I would be guilty. So I'm guilty, but I'm declared not guilty. Okay. Now, what if at this point, for the rest of my life, I then follow the law? And under the law, I live righteously for the rest of my life. Okay, that's good. So under the law, I live righteously. That's one aspect of righteousness, is that I'm declared righteous, declared not guilty, and that I live not guilty, live righteously for the rest of my life. But there's a problem. The judge was unrighteous. So how can the judge be righteous and declare a guilty person not guilty? How do we solve for that problem? Now, I think how it's generally described is that Jesus pays the penalty for me. He dies instead of me, as if, I'm before the firing squad, guilty of murder. The firing squad shoots at me. Jesus dives in the way. Jesus dives in the way and takes the bullets, and then they go, oh, well, hey, we're out of bullets, and so, killed the wrong guy, but oh well, we were just told to kill somebody. We didn't say we had to kill me. That me would be the guilty person. Is that what's going on? And I want to say, I don't think that's how the Bible describes it. So while that might be very exciting, I think the way the Bible describes it is the way Paul describes it in chapter 7, where he's talking about the woman being married to a man. She's only obligated to stay married to him as long as they both live. But what if one of them dies? And so the case that Paul is making, I think, here and there, and I may be getting ahead of myself. I don't have verses in front of me, but I think the case that Paul is making is, guess what? I'm guilty, but if I'm dead, I'm no longer guilty. So how can I be guilty if I'm still alive? And the answer is, it doesn't. I have to die. That is, my old self, my old Adam, who I am in Adam, has to die. Where can I die and still live? Well, I can wait till my physical death, at which case I'll be dead, or I can die with Jesus. And in Christ, I die, right? So I can say, old Steve, the Steve that's guilty, is dead. Therefore, the law, God's law, God's righteous decree has been executed in Steve. And therefore, he declares me righteous. He declares me not guilty, because now there's a new Steve that he has created by his not guilty verdict. It would be as if the judge looked at me and said, okay, you have to die, but I'm going to create a new you. And that's what God does in Christ Jesus. He kills my old self, and he raises me to a new self in Christ Jesus. Now, that's a one-time declaration that he's going to make on Judgment Day, that he makes on the cross and every day of my life. Okay? Now, that's the one kind of righteousness, is that declared righteousness, where he simply says, in Christ, I have died, and so that self has paid the penalty. Now there's a new self, which is righteous in God's sight, and holy in God's sight, and good in God's sight. Okay? And there I'm getting on thin ground, because I'm not sure the Bible talks that way, or at least talks that way too much. So then I start to live righteously according to my new nature. And Paul will talk about this in Romans 7 and 8, that there's this battle going on between my old nature, which must die, and my new nature, which wants to please Jesus. Okay. So one other analogy that I think might be helpful, as far as the kind of, I think, two ways that righteousness is talked about. So let's pretend I have a son. Now, legally, I have declared that my son is my son. He is my son. He is right in my eyes. He is my son. He's legally my son. He's my son's son. He's part of my family. I clothe him and feed him and put a roof over his head, and I treat him as my son. So he is righteous because I said so. Okay, you're with me? That's a decree on my part. Now, the second part is when my son lives righteously. He acts according to that righteousness and acts like my son. And so sometimes I think righteousness refers to a decree, as in, I decree that my son is my son. God decrees that I am his son, his child, and I then live righteously. I live as if I actually am his child. So you'll see some kind of moral aspects to righteousness, where we're living in righteousness. We're living as if we are God's children. Okay, so when my son rebels, I have to forgive him, and that's, again, it's a decree on my part, is I forgive him when he rebels against me. And how Jesus's death fits into that, again, I'll go back to the previous analogy. I just know his death works in some way, shape, or form. Jesus pleads for us and God has mercy on us. But in no point can I say, oh, there's something of merit in me, or there's something of worth in me, or there's something of value in me. There's something I did, or there's something that I am that somehow deserves or is entitled to God's mercy or grace or forgiveness, right? All right. God bless.